Hi, welcome to North State Law. My name is Nick Dogle, still the owner and founder. Today we're going to talk about licensed clinical mental health counselors in North Carolina, and we're going to have some tips regarding common complaints against the licensed clinical mental health counselors in North Carolina. So this is one profession that really needs some help because there's not a lot of licensed clinical mental health counselors in North Carolina. And I should say that there's not enough licensed clinical mental health counselors to help out with mental health issues for citizens of North Carolina at this particular time, at least. Hopefully, we get more people in this particular profession, help out those with mental health issues, and then, that'll kind of alleviate some pressure on everybody involved in this profession. So some of the most common complaints that we've seen typically revolve around a couple things. And the main one that it revolves around is going to be like custody disputes. Hot button issue, obviously, for obvious reasons. A lot of licensed clinical mental health counselors will work with children, and then as a result of the services that are provided to the children, if the children are in the middle of a custody dispute between two parents, then there's a higher than normal likelihood that licensed clinical mental health counselor will be called to testify. So one of the things that I've noticed, and we've had multiple clients with this particular complaint against them, it's where one parent is upset that the licensed clinical mental health counselor is seeing the child. And in certain particular cases, they'll either be in the middle of a custody dispute where they've already got a consent order in place, or they've gone through a custody process and they have some sort of custody order or custody agreement in place, whether that's through consent or actually litigating that. End of the day, they've got some sort of custody order in place. The main thing where licensed clinical mental health counselors can potentially get in trouble in this particular case is like, well, who has the authority to have the child be seen by a licensed clinical mental health counselor? And that really boils down to, well, who has legal authority for the child? So with custody cases, and I'm not going to go into a big detail on it, but with child custody cases in North Carolina, you've got legal custody, which is basically decision-making authority, just to water it down a little bit. And then you got physical custody, obviously how much time they actually spend with each parent. So one of the things that licensed clinical mental health counselors can work into their policies and procedures, maybe on intake, is, all right, well, do you have are both parents co-parenting the child? If so, are both parents currently together in one household? If not, is there a custody agreement or a custody order? Slight difference between the two is a custody agreement is going to be most likely part of a separation agreement, which is separate from court most of the time. And then a custody order is going to go through the court process. So you want to ask specifically, do you have a custody agreement or a custody order in place? If so, please provide that to our office in order for us to determine if we can provide care to the child. The biggest thing is you want to cover your bases, and you want to make sure that whomever is coming to you to provide services for their child is the actual person that can make decisions regarding that child in regards to care. If they don't have authority to do it, then there's a potential problem there with the board, because then you are providing care to somebody that legally you've not been given permission to provide care to, as far as the minor is concerned. So you just want to be careful as far as that's concerned. There is going to be some gray area on this. But as long as you do your due diligence and you attempt to get as much information as possible from the parent or parents, then you're going to cover your bases, and you're going to be putting yourself in a better position to either avoid a complaint or have a good argument if there is a complaint, if that makes sense. Okay. Another one that we've seen a couple times is And we've seen it on the positive side. We've seen where people that are licensed clinical mental health counselors, they are very proactive about, hey, I think that there's some issues of abuse here. I'm going to report this to authorities. That's a requirement for licensed clinical mental health counselors in North Carolina. If you feel like you're dealing with either a child or a potentially battered spouse or somebody that's being in a physically abusive relationship, then and you know who the other person is that is abusing your client, then you are obligated to report that to law enforcement authorities. In regards to a child, you got to report to DSS, Department of Social Services. Probably want to go ahead and report it to law enforcement as well if you think the abuse is ongoing. But you do have to report it to DSS if it is a child. We've had it to where clients have done what they're supposed to do. They've reported to the specific people. They had very reasonable reasons for doing so, and then the person that the report against, we'll say a parent, they come back and they file a complaint. Well, everything was done properly from the licensed clinical mental health counselor's perspective. Like they did what they were supposed to do, quote unquote, by the book. And then because the parent was upset about it, or there was some circumstances and facts that the licensed clinical mental health counselor was never aware of, they filed a complaint and with the board, and then the counselor's got to deal with that, unfortunately. But even if you do things right, unfortunately, sometimes people will still file a complaint. But if you don't do things right and you have a good bit of evidence to show that, and again, using an example of a child, is being abused and you don't report it to DSS, then that's an ethics violation. And that's going to get you in trouble. And most importantly, we want to make sure that the kids are taken care of and the kids are protected, right? And I have noticed in this particular profession, when I've had clients that their clients are children, they do a great job of making sure that the kids are protected. So kudos to everybody that's a licensed clinical mental health counselor out there. I know the job that you're doing is not particularly easy, but it is definitely necessary. So thank you for doing what you do. Another big time potential complaint that we've seen over the years is failure to adequately protect client information. You got to keep that stuff secure. If you're using a server or if you're using any sort of, kind of like a Dropbox or G Drive or something like that, make sure that's as secure as can be. Get you a firewall. Talk to an IT professional. And make sure that you have the best and most secured system available. A lot of IT professionals that work with physicians, dentists, people that are probably in your field or other mental health fields. So they're going to be familiar with the steps necessary to protect the data that you're acquiring during the course of your consultations and your appointments with your clients. Another thing going into that is record keeping is huge. You got to take really good notes. And I know it's not always easy because you probably got a long list of people that you got to see during the day, and maybe your appointment's 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and you want to make sure that you're mentally available for that particular person at that time. But you still have to take good notes. And not only is it going to be for yourself, but it's going to be for, maybe at some point, you've got to escalate them to a different level of care with a different licensed professional. Well, that person's going to need to see all the notes. You're going to need to see all the notes if that person stays with you. So notes and record keeping are huge and are going to be necessary. And if you don't take good notes, you're not doing a good job for your client, to be perfectly frank. And I get it. It's hard. We take notes all the time in my office. And, a lot of times what I do is, hey, I'm with you. If you don't hear me talking, it's just because I'm taking some notes. The reason I'm taking some notes is because I want to be able to refer back to this for our next time that we're speaking. Or if you end up, further along in the next 6, 9, 12 months, whatever the case may be, and you end up with somebody else, well, they need to be able to refer back to these notes as well. And it could just be a short little explanation. You can have something kind of prepared for when you initially start talking with somebody, just to establish that rapport and that understanding of like, hey, I've got to do this. I need to do this. just giving you a heads up because they might be expecting a response from you and you're finishing up a note. That way they know at the beginning of the call, hey, if you don't hear from me, I'm still here. I didn't go anywhere. I'm just taking some notes and it's for your benefit. So that's another big one. Obviously, you also want to be HIPAA compliant. And this goes back to some extent with having all the information secure. So if you're doing a telehealth session and you have the availability to do that, you want to do it in an area where you're not around a lot of people. Okay, so you want to do it in an office setting. You want to do it where nobody's going to be able to hear you or anything along those lines, and you want to make sure that your connection is secure and has some sort of technical security of it, whether that's a firewall or a firewall and something else, whatever the case may be. I'm not an IT professional. I would recommend reaching out to somebody, like I mentioned before. Excuse me, they do a great job, and they'll be able to get you set up and get your not only your server secure, but your connection secure and make sure nobody is spying on any of your sessions. So those are the main ones. Another one, and this is basic. I feel bad for even saying it, but there's probably somebody out there that thinks it's okay to go to a coffee shop and do a session with somebody. Hopefully there's not, but if there is, don't do that. Don't do anything like that. In my profession as an attorney, we obviously have to keep our client communications confidential, which is what we do. And part of that is you can't go to a coffee shop and have a consultation with somebody or have a follow-up phone call with somebody. Like you can't do it. You have to keep all that stuff, very confidential. You got to keep all the communication secure, all the records secure, all the notes secure, things like that. So make sure you document. If you reasonably believe that somebody is the victim of some sort of domestic violence or otherwise, contact law enforcement. If it's a child, kind of contact Department of Social Services. I talked about ad nauseum about taking quality notes, saying at the beginning of the call, hey, I'm about to take some notes. If you don't hear from me, I didn't go anywhere. I'm just taking notes. And, that's why there's a pause. Talked a lot about HIPAA, making sure you're compliant with that, making sure that all your technology and your note-taking devices and everything else is secure, and where you store all that data is secure as well. So I hope that was useful. If you have any questions on anything, make sure to check out the blogs on my website, northstatelawfirm.com. Also, I've got another videos on the YouTube channel, North State Law's YouTube channel. And if you still can't find what you're looking for in either one of those spots, please give us a call or a text at 919-521-8810. I'm going to throw that out there again, 919-521-8810. And you can get a free 15-minute discovery call with a member of my staff. Thank you guys so much for taking care of North Carolina. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.